Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today's topic is relative estimation. Very important topic to understand before getting into the topics of estimation techniques. So, earlier in the traditional methodology, we used to give the estimation in accurate units or measurable units or units of time. Like, I will complete this task in 8 days, I will complete this task in 4 hours, I will complete this task in 5 hours. So here there is a definite value and people can correlate with the time. But in relative estimation, it is not the case. Relative estimation is an estimation technique or method that is used in Agile, which does not include any measurements in time or any units in time, which will represent only in relative values. Okay, so relative estimation means it's not going to connect anything related to time. It is going to completely talk about relative measurement. What is relative measurement? Relative measurement is comparing with similar task or comparing with the completed task and seeing whether it is high or low or big or small. What does that mean? Now let's try to understand how relative measurement works. Let's imagine I'm holding a glass in my hand and I'm able to fill some water in that glass. I'm taking one more glass and I'm telling to my friend this is slightly bigger than the previous one. Okay? And one more glass I'm picking and I'm saying this is bigger than the previous one. Okay? Again picking one more glass, I'm telling this is bigger than all the other three glasses. So what exactly I'm doing here? I am trying to compare with the one that is available and seeing whether it is big or small. That's what I am trying to do here. So what exactly is the core content here? Comparing and relatively measuring whether it is small or big. The same is with relative estimation. We will pick an user story, and first thing what we need to do is what is the first glass, because the first glass is very important here. Why first glass is very important? Because against that the other glasses were compared and again it was keep on going gradually whether it is bigger or smaller. So the first glass we need to identify. So in user story, how to identify this? User stories are estimated and they will get something called as story points, user story points. User story points are arbitrary measure, arbitrary values. What is arbitrary here? Why I'm using this word? Arbitrary is something like it's a rainy day and I feel to eat ice cream. It's a feeling. Is there any reason behind that? No, but there is a feeling. Same way, arbitrary means a decision that can happen may or may not have a fair reason behind it. So user story point is also something we are trying to achieve with the help of relative estimation. May not look like what is the exact measurement here. There is no exact measurement because all about relative. That's the reason we say user stories are estimated with the help of story points. So user stories that are provided as input to the estimation activity will get story points at the end. Now, how user stories are estimated? Now we know that what is relative estimation. Relative estimation means there is one object which is there and we are saying this object is bigger or smaller. We are trying to identify that relatively whether it is bigger or smaller. That's what we are trying to understand. It's not about how much bigger, how much smaller, we are not going to discuss. Like first glass is going to fill some water. Obviously when the glass which is bigger than the previous one can fill much more water, can accommodate much more things. Same way when the glass level is bigger and bigger, it can fill more and more water. But how much more it can fill, that I'm not going to measure. I am more interested about whether it is bigger or smaller. So comparatively, I am coming up with the measurement saying whether it is bigger or smaller. That's all. So now same thing we are going to do in user story estimation also. So now user stories actually were written by product owner, or maybe technical user stories would have been written by technical lead. Now user stories have been written. Estimation activity happens during backlog refinement event. We will see in detail what is backlog refinement, but in backlog refinement this activity will be performed. What is estimation activity? So in this we will be, there are different techniques to do this activity. We will see that technique in a separate episode, but we will try to understand here what will happen as part of this estimation activity. How exactly, first we need to understand how these user story points are coming up. So this activity is performed. First thing, for a new team, what is the smallest glass? That should be first identified. How to identify that? So when I say user story points, it is an arbitrary value that depends on few things. What are those things? The involved dependencies, the involved risk, the involved business value of the story, of course the effort, and the complexity. Now first we need to identify the story which has very minimum effort required, no dependencies at all, no risk at all, and very low complexity, and business value is very low, which means nice to have kind of functionality. Let's consider an user story like this, and as a team first we need to understand, are we all aligned and understood whether these all factors are minimum or zero for this user story? Are all we aligned? Then when team is like, yes, we all are aligned and we understood that this story effort is very minimum, no dependencies, no risk, complexity is low, and the effort is also minimum, business value is also minimum. Now we should consider this is equal to one story point. So now we found the smallest glass. Now it is all about understanding next user story. When we will be estimating, we will be trying to compare how much relatively it is bigger or smaller than this one that is identified, which is user story point 1. Let's take another user story. Team is feeling, no, there are dependencies, there are risk involved, effort is also high, complexity is also more, business value is also more, but all these things are relatively how many times more than the one that we have identified as user story point 1? 3 times bigger, 5 times bigger, 8 times bigger, 13 times bigger? How many times? Why I am saying 5, 8, 13? We will talk about a separate topic called Fibonacci series. So let's try to understand how many times bigger. Oh, 5 times bigger? Then this will come as 5 story points. Now the question comes here is like, why are we trying to involve all these factors of dependency, risk? Effort is sufficient, right? No, it is not sufficient. The reason is, when we are trying to identify only the task that we are performing, then we will not be able to give the exact time or the exact story point that is required to manage this complete user story. We need to identify all the items like dependencies, risk, with these help of these factors. These factors like amount of work done, dependencies, risk, complexity, and the business value. We will be able to understand what is the user story all about. Is it easy, or is it medium, or is it hard? So to categorize and bucket with easy, medium, and hard, we need to come up with the story points. So story points is not only about effort, story points has all these factors in it. So I'm trying to conclude on this topic by just giving a quick information about whatever we have discussed. So first we discussed about what is relative estimation. So relative estimation is different from the accurate estimation that we used to do in the traditional methodology. There we used to measure everything in units of time, like 5 days, 3 days, 2 days. But here it is all about a relative unit. And story points are arbitrary measure or arbitrary values that are given to story user stories as part of estimation activities. And these values are completely dependent on, these values mean story points. Story points are completely dependent on not only the effort, it also includes dependencies, risk, complexity, and business value of the user story. User story estimation happens in the backlog refinement meeting, and the user stories, after getting the complete clarity, we will be giving the story points. So what is all about relative estimation we saw with an example. So we need to identify the smallest object and then start comparing the other objects with this smallest object to identify how much relatively it is bigger or smaller. So relative estimation is all about not measuring anything in units of time. It is all about measuring relatively. So here we should identify as part of our estimation activity, first identify what is the user story with story point 1. So now after identifying this, start comparing the user stories that should be estimated with this user story point 1 story to understand how much it is really bigger than this smallest story. And then you will be able to derive the story points for the user story. So now we understood what is relative estimation and what is story point and how are we bringing that story point. Now there are much more episodes coming up in estimation because it's a very big topic and we want to understand in detail. So there are many more episodes coming up. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening and happy learning.